Hi, this is Doug Renstrom. Welcome to this demo on exploring Google Cloud Storage. In this demo, we will show you how cloud storage works. We will create a couple buckets using the console and the CLI with different storage classes and locations. We will enable object versioning on a bucket, then add a file to the bucket using the console and the CLI and observe how versioning works. Let's get started. First, we'll go to cloud storage inside the management console. Cloud storage allows you to store from 0 bytes to petabytes of data without capacity planning or infrastructure provisioning with very high durability, 11.9 storability. There's a free tier of 5 gigabytes of regional storage and 1 gigabyte free egress from each GCP region. While cloud storage might look a bit like a remote disk drive, it isn't. While it looks as though you can create a folder hierarchy, you actually don't. While it looks as though you are working with files, you aren't. Instead, you create buckets, which contain immutable objects. We'll look at buckets and objects right now. Let's create a bucket. A bucket needs a name. Let's try to call this one Demo. Notice it says, this bucket name is already in use. Cloud storage bucket names have to be unique in all the world, not just within your project or the organization. Let's try adding my name to the name of the bucket. Notice there are strict naming rules on buckets as well. Uppercase letters aren't allowed, as well as other special characters. Also, if you put a dot in a bucket name, it implies that that bucket represents a domain. You can do that, but you would have to prove you own the domain you're referring to. Let's fix this bucket name. Objects are added to buckets, and a single bucket can either be regional or multi-regional. Notice you select regional or multi-regional right here. Multi-regional buckets are distributed across multiple regions in either the United States, the EU, or Asia. Multiple copies of each object are kept across these regions. Regional buckets are located in a single GCP region. Multiple copies of an object are distributed across zones within this region. Multi-regional storage is a little more expensive, 2.6 cents per gigabyte per month, compared to regional storage, which is 2 cents per gigabyte per month, but will typically be used for data which will be consumed by widely distributed clients, like serving data across the web. Regional storage would be better where the client is in a single region, like a big data client or Dataproc or Dataflow. The other two storage classes, nearline and coldline, are suited for less frequently accessed objects. Nearline costs 1 cent per gigabyte per month, but has a $10 per terabyte charge for retrieval, so access less than once a month is cheaper than regional, but more than once a month costs more. Coldline costs 7 cents per gigabyte per month, but retrieval cost is $50 per terabyte. This means that access patterns of less than once a year are best for coldline storage. Coldline storage would be good for long-term archives of data or disaster recovery data. While buckets have a default storage class, you can store different classes of an object in the same bucket. You can't mix regional and multi-regional in the same bucket, but you can do multi-regional plus nearline plus coldline, or regional plus nearline and coldline in the same bucket. You can also have automatic lifecycle migration rules that move files between storage classes. Let's choose a multi-regional bucket and set United States as our location and hit create. Okay, now we have our demo bucket. Let's upload some files to the bucket. I wrote a Space Invaders game in AngularJS. Let's upload that and see if we can get it to work. I'm going to click Upload Folder, and then in my home directory, there's a folder called Space Invaders. I'm going to upload that. Okay, all the files are uploaded. Now I want to make them all public. Here's my Space Invaders folder. Let me click on that. I'll share everything and then share all the files publicly. This message just says, it can't share folders, it'll only share the files. So I'll have to open up each folder that has files that I want to share. So there's another folder here called Views. I'll select all those files and share those as publicly. And there's another folder called Controllers. I'll open that folder and share it publicly. Now let's see if my game works. Back in the Space Invaders folder, there's a file index.html. Let me click on the public link to that file. And there we have Space Invaders. Let's see if the game works. All right, seems to be working. Now let's play around with the command line interface and object versioning. Returning to Google Cloud Storage, let's activate Google Cloud Shell. In Cloud Shell, let's make a directory. Call it Space Invaders. And we'll cd into that directory. Now let's enter some command line commands just to see how things work. If we do ls in our folder, we'll see we have no files. gsutil is the command line interface for working with Google Cloud Storage. So if we enter gsutil space ls, then we'll see all the buckets that have been created in this particular project. Notice there's our demo folder that we created a little while ago. Now let's do gsutil ls and the name of our bucket. This shows us the folders. Now let's list the files in the Space Invader folder. There's a file called puppy.svg inside the Space Invaders folder. I want to download that to my current folder. So we'll do gsutil copy and then specify the file we want inside cloud storage, and we'll bring it back to the local directory, period. Let's do an ls now. Now we see we have that file, puppy.svg. This command, gsutil versioning set on, and the name of the bucket, turns versioning on for this bucket. If we go back to Space Invaders, notice the enemy flying above drops cows on our hero below. Let's enter this command, gsutil, and we're going to add a header value. The header will say cache control no cache. I don't want anything to be cached, and I want the maximum age of this file to be 0. Then we're going to copy puppy.svg and we're going to overwrite that file bomb.svg. Bomb.svg determines what the enemy drops on the hero. That file was overwritten. Now let's go look. Originally bomb.svg was about 49K and puppy.svg was about 300K. If we refresh this folder, now we'll see bomb.svg has been overwritten. It's now 300K. Let's make this link public again. And let's go back to Space Invaders and hit refresh. Now the enemy is dropping the puppy. Let's go back to our Google Cloud Shell. This command is going to list all versions of bomb.svg. Notice I've done this a few times now. There are a number of different versions of bomb.svg. Each version of bomb.svg is identified by a number. When bomb.svg has been the cow, that's when it's been 50K. You can see sometimes bomb.svg is the puppy. If it's the puppy, then it's about 300K big. If I currently, we're dropping puppies, if we want to go back to an earlier version, then we can type the following. This command overwrites the current version of bomb.svg with an earlier version of bomb.svg that was one of the pictures of the cow. Now we've overwritten the file. Let's go back and refresh our folder. Now bomb.svg is back to 49K. Let's make the link public and go back and refresh Space Invaders. Now the enemy is back to dropping the cow. I hope you've enjoyed this demo on Google Cloud Storage. In this demo, we created cloud storage buckets with the console and the command line, reviewed cloud storage classes, durability, and availability. We've enabled object versioning on a bucket, and we've manipulated objects in a bucket using both the console and the command line interface. Thanks for watching. This is Doug Renstrom.